Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to be doing another casual deck building. Today, I decided to do one of my funner ones. I've had a lot of fun with this one because the idea that came around was I saw a lot of wizards. I'm like, oh, I'm going to make a wizard tribal deck. That sounds like a lot of fun. And especially because there was one or two that you can tap to make 1/1 wizards. Surprisingly, there's not a lot of um, wizard token generators. There's the regular ones, and then there's one that like you can sacrifice to counter something, but like that's about it. And I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks. So don't really have much option in that regard. But we still got other wizards. We went with our commander Garth One Eye. He's Wooburg or one of each color. Legendary wizard, obviously. You can tap him to choose a card name that hasn't been chosen from among Disenchant, Brain Geyser, Terror, Shivan Dragon, Regrowth, and Black Lotus. You create a copy of that card with the chosen name, and then you may cast that copy. He is a 5/5. Now, because some of those cards are extremely expensive, like Black Lotus, you just need to make yourself a token, just a cheap little token here of the guy and the disenchantments and the terror and the brain geyser and the regrowth. So you can still do them, but oh, because yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine. We're cool. Everything's great. All right, moving on. Let's start off with Airtie Resurrected. 2, a blue, and a black. He's a legendary creature. He has flash, and when he enters the battlefield, you choose up to 1. You counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Its controller draws a card. Or you can destroy another target creature or planeswalker. Its controller draws a card. 3/2. Yeah, there you go. All right, Ponder. A blue. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put them back in any order. You may shuffle. Draw a card. Command Tower. Memnarch. 7 mana. Legendary artifact creature. Wizard. He doesn't look like a wizard. But because you think it's like one of the monsters from like the day the Earth stood still or like War of the Planets or whatever. It's just like this big honking thing. But like if you get really close, I don't know if you can tell. Right there, in the middle, the 2 hands coming out of it. Yeah, there's a dude in there. Anyway, you can pay 1 and 2 blue to have target permanent become an artifact in addition to its other types. And you can pay 3 and a blue to gain control of target artifact. He's a 4/5. That's a fun one. Flamekin Herald, 2 and a red. Elemental Wizard. Commander spells you cast have Cascade. Ooh. For that one, it's not really all that big of a deal, but it's fun. Now, this is also on the new Game Changers list, now that I think about it. Grand Arbiter Augustine IV. 2, a white, and a blue. White spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Blue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Those do stack. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast. He is a 2/3. I played him and he got countered immediately. Saheeli, the Gifted. 2, a red, and a blue for a legendary planeswalker. +1, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. That's good for getting up blockers because wizards are not strong. +1, the next spell you cast this turn costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control as you cast it. Or you can -7. For each artifact you control, you create a token that's a copy of it. Those tokens gain haste. Exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. She can be your commander with a loyalty of 4. Arcanus, the Omnipotent. 3 and 3 blue. Tap him to draw 3 cards. Or you can pay 2 and 2 blue to return him to its owner's hand. He's a 3/4. Corrosion Grip. 2 and a green. Instant split second. As long as the spell is on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. Meaning, if people are casting spells and all this stuff, you can interrupt it and be like, destroy that, and everything else stops. It just like ends the stack. Mirari's Wake. 3, a green, and a white. It's an enchantment. Creatures you can control get +1/+1. Awesome. But whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced. So it doubles your mana. It's great. It's awesome. Sword of War and Peace. 3 mana. Equipment creatures. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from red and white. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, sword deals that damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand, and you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. Equip cost 2. I think this one would be better in my other deck, but I digress. Smothering Tithe, 3 and a white. I think this is also in the new Game Changers list. The problem that I always have with this one is I always will get it out and I'll always get like 10, 11 treasures, whatnot, but I never have anything to do with it. And so it's never really been a game changer for me. It's always just been, well, I have mana. That's about it. Heroic Intervention, 1 and a green. Instant. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Isochron Scepter, 2 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card with mana value 2 or less from your hand. You can pay 2, tap it, and you may copy the exiled card. If you do that, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Island. Path of Ancestry. This one enters tapped, and you can add a mana of any color in your commander's color identity. When that mana is spent to cast a creature card that shares a creature type with it, scry 1. Kodama's Reach, 2 and a green. Search your library for 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards. Put 1 into the battlefield tapped and the other in your hand, and then shuffle. Authority of the Consuls, 1 white. Creatures your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, gain 1 life. Melik, Izzet Paragon, 4, a blue, and a red. Play the top card of your library revealed. You may cast instant and sorcery spells from the top of your library. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your library, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. He's a 2/4. A forest. Demonic Tutor. Any tutors are now big game changers. 1 and a black. Search your library for a card and put that into your hand, then shuffle your library. Shalai, Voice of Plenty, 3 and a white. Flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. You can also pay 4 and 2 green to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. You have 3/4. Leyline Immersion, 3 and a green. Enchant a legendary creature. Enchanted creature has ward 2, and you can tap it to add 5 mana in any combination of colors. Spend that only to cast spells. We've got Gilded Lotus, 5 mana. Tap it to add 3 mana of 1 color. Sigarda's Aid. Enchantment. You may cast aura and equipment spells as though they had flash. And whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach it to target creature you control. I've got this one in here because I put a couple equipments in here because wizards are weak and they need the equipment to protect them and keep them buffed, so that made sense. Sen Triplets. 2, a white, a blue, and a black. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose target opponent. This turn, that player can't cast spells or activate abilities and plays with their hand revealed. You may play lands and cast spells from that player's hand this turn. It's a 3/3. We got a plains. We got Teferi's Protection, 2 and a white, instant. Until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you gain protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out, and then you exile Teferi's Protection. Affetto Alchemist, 1 and a blue. Untap target artifact or creature. You can also cast him for his morph cost for a blue. He is a 1/2. Otawara, Soaring City, legendary land. Tap for a blue, or you can pay 3 and a blue to discard it from your hand and return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. Ruinous Ultimatum. 2 red, 3 white, 2 black. Destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. It's a good one-sided board wipe. Venser, Shaper Savant. 2 and 2 blue. Flash. When he enters the battlefield, return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. He's a 2/2. Sword of Hearth and Home, 3 mana. Equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from white and green. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, Exile up to one target creature you own. Search your library for a basic land card. Put both onto the battlefield under your control. Then shuffle. Equip cost 2. So now you're starting to see a couple of the pieces come together with the bouncing and the exiling and the protection. It's great. It's great. It's wonderful. We love it. Forest. Magus of the Future. 2 and 3 blue. Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play land. You may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. He's a 2/3. We got a swamp. We have Urza's Saga. First set gives you a colorless. Second set, he gains the ability to pay 2 and tap it to create a 1/1 to create a 0/0 colorless artifact creature token. With this creature gets 1/1 for each artifact you control. And then the third one, you search your library for an artifact card with mana cost 0 or 1 and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. This is a good way to cheat out a Soul Ring. Darksteel Plate, 3 mana, equipment, indestructible. Equipped creature has indestructible, equip cost 2. Shizo, Death's Storehouse, legendary land, taps for black. You can pay a black and tap it to have target legendary creature gaining fear until end of turn. We've got a mountain. Docent of Perfection, 3 and 2 blue. Flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token. Then if you control 3 or more wizards, transform Docent of Perfection. He is a 5/4, and he transforms into a 6/5. He is a Eldrazi insect, final iteration. Flying, wizards you control get +2/+1 and have flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token. So that's a good way to help buff up your creatures, but it kind of takes a minute to get there sometimes. Dryad of the Elysian Grove, 2 and a green. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, and lands you control are every basic land type in addition to the other types. Helps with mana fixing. Cultivate, 2 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards. Put one onto the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand and shuffle. Timeless Lotus, 5 mana. It enters tapped. It's a legendary artifact, and you can tap it for 1 of each color. So that's 5 mana. It's awesome. Cavern of Souls enters the battlefield. Choose a creature type. Tap to add a colorless. Or you can tap to add a mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type. That spell can't be countered. Johann, Apprentice Sorcerer, 2, a blue, and a red. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. Once each turn, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from the top of your library. He's a 2/5. I'm going to take a drink because I'm getting thirsty. Good stuff. Simone, Paradox Sculptor, 2, a green, and a blue. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. You can pay a green and a blue to tap it, and then double the number of each kinds of counters on up to 2 target creatures and or artifacts you control. She's 1/4. That's a good way to make your weak wizards strong. Here's a Reliquary Tower. No maximum hand size. Tap for colorless. Lightning Greaves, 2 mana. Equipped creature has haste and shroud. It's an equipment. Equip cost 0. Gandalf the White and Gandalf the Grey. 3 mana, 2 white. Flash. You may cast legendary spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. If a legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaving the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Ooh. Shadow Spear, 1 mana. It's an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink. Or you can pay 1 mana and permanents your opponent's control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Equip cost 2. Solemn Simulacrum or Sad Robot, 4 mana, artifact creature. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card. Put it onto battlefield, tap, then shuffle. And when it dies, draw a card. So 2/2. Island. Glarb, Calamity's Augur. He's a black, green, and a blue. He's a frog wizard noble. Death Touch. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. A lot of wizards seem to have that ability. You may play lands and cast spells with mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library, and you can tap him to Surveil 2. Surveil is look at the top of the card of your library, then you can either put it back or put it into the graveyard. Ink Shield, 3, a white and a black. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn. For each 1 damage prevented this way, create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. So if you take 17 damage, you can play this and gain 17 2/1 Inkling creatures. That's won me the game once or twice when people throw out a Crater Hoof and then swing out big, and I'm like, no! And then I swing out at them and kill them. It's great. It's a great thing to rub in the face of big green players. Because it says right here, you did it to yourself. So true. Invert polarity. 2 blues and a red. Choose target spell, then flip a coin. If you win the flip, gain control of that spell, and you may choose new targets for it. If you lose the flip, you just counter that spell. Rivendell. It enters tapped unless you control a legendary creature. And you can tap it for a blue. And you can pay 1 in a blue to tap it to scry 2. Activate only if you control a legendary creature. Temple of the False God. Tap for 2. Activate it only if you have 5 or more lands. Growth Spiral. Green and a blue. Draw a card. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Riku of 2 Reflections. 2 mana. Green, blue, and red. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay a blue and a red. If you do, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay a green and a blue. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature. It's a 2/2. Flame of Anor. 1 mana, 1 blue, and 1 red. It's an instant. Choose one of them, unless you control a wizard. As you cast a spell, you may choose 2 instead. Target player draws 2 cards. Destroy target artifact. Or Flame of Anor deals 5 damage to target creature. Roaming Throne, 4 mana. This works great with some of our wizard triggers. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. It is also that type, and if a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers, trigger it an additional time. That's a 4/4. Radadrabic of Urborg, 2 a white and black. Vigilance and Ward 2. Other zombies you control have Vigilance. That's not as necessary here, but whenever another legendary creature you control dies, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's not legendary, and it's a 2/2 black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. 3/3. Cyclonic Rift, I think this is also in Game Changers. It's normally 1 and a blue to return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Or you can pay 6 and a blue to make all non-land permanents you don't control return to their owner's hand. There are some other ones that will work better for that. Something like Aetherize. If they're going to attack you, you can return those creatures. So if you want to switch out the Game Changers, go for it. I think I'm at 3 now. Grand Arbiter. Cyclonic. There's the third one. I'm trying to remember. Right? It's 3 for the different groups. Demonic Shooter. Yeah, 3. Okay. Swiftfoot Boots, 2. Equipment. Equip creature has hexproof and haste. Equip for 1. More protection for your boys. Seed Time. 1 and a green. Instant. Play Seed Time only during your turn. Take an extra turn after this one if an opponent played a blue spell this turn. So if they want to counter something, you can play this to get an extra turn. I think the Game Changer rules are saying no chaining extra turns, but I think you can still take an extra turn. I can't remember. I need to double check. I have no need chaining. You can potentially do it with... Where'd he go? Where's his bucket? Riku. Riku, you could potentially do that, but you can use this deck in higher power stuff, right? But if you're in lower power stuff, just don't do it. That's a conversation I have with people at the beginning. Like, hey, my deck can do this, but in this game, I'm not going to do that. People are totally fine with that. It saves you a lot of time of having to constantly swap out cards or build new decks. So just have that talk with people. It's not a big deal. Most of the pods I'm in, we don't care. We're not even using the bracket system anyway. We're just playing more casual, so it's like meh. Spitting Image, 4 and then either 2 green, 2 blue, or 1 of each. Create a token that's a copy of target creature, and then it has Retrace. You may cast this card from your graveyard, but it's discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. Tundra, taps for a white or blue. Is it Boilerworks? When it comes into play tap, you return another land to your hand, and then you can tap this for a blue and a red. Delirium, 1 black and red. Play only on target opponent's turn. Tap target creature that player controls. That creature deals to the player an amount of damage equal to its power. The creature neither deals nor receives combat damage this turn. So this is a fun one to play if your opponents have a really big creature and you're like, no, I don't want that to do anything. Lock it down and hit them for it. This is especially going to be a fun one to use against the new giant cactuar from the Final Fantasy set that they revealed that does 9,999. So that's going to be fun. Boros Garrison, same as the Boilerworks. Bounce a land, tap for a red and a white. Wizard's Lightning, 2 and a red. This spell costs 2 less to cast if you control a wizard. Wizard's Lightning deals 3 damage to any target. It's an extra lightning bolt. It's great. We love it. We got an island. And we got Enlightened Tutor. I think this is also on it. So that puts me at 4 game changers. So this technically would not fit into a bracket 3 or lower. I think it's just 4 or higher when you got 4 of these. So that's good to know. That's good to remember when I play with people that play in the brackets. Plains. Flicker of Fate, 1 and a white. Exile target creature or an enchantment, then return it to its battlefield under its owner control. Helm of the Host, 4 mana. Legendary artifact equipment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except that token isn't legendary. If equipped creature is legendary, that token gains haste. Equip 5. So I put this in this deck not knowing that I could equip it onto Garth One Eye and then have a bunch of fun abilities to tap and create Black Lotuses and Regrowths and Shivan Dragons. So that was fun when I found that out accidentally. Nico, Light of Hope. 2, a white, and a blue. When he enters, create 2 shard tokens. These are enchantments with pay 2 mana, sacrifice this enchantment, scry 1, then draw a card. You can also pay 2 and tap him. Exile target non-legendary creature you control. Shards you control become copies of it until the end of the next end step. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. It is a 3/4. I used this on the last game I played with it. I had him create a Shivan Dragon, and then I turned those shard tokens into Shivan Dragons. That was fun. Coruscation Mage, 1 and a red. Offspring 2. You may pay an additional 2 mana as you cast a spell. If you do, when this creature enters, create a 1/1 token copy of it. When you cast a non-creature spell, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. 2 mana. Or 2/2. We're going to have to move you again. You keep getting in the way. Bayou taps for a black or a green. Court of Vantress. 2 and 2 blue. Enchantment. When Court of Vantress enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose up to 1 other target enchantment or artifact. If you are the monarch, you may create a token that's a copy of it. If you are not the monarch, you may have Court of Vantress become a copy of it, except it has this ability. Xander's Lounge. It enters tapped, but it can tap for a blue, a black, or a red. And it has cycling 3, meaning you pay 3 mana, discard it, and then you draw a card. Classic Counterspell. 2 blues. Counters target spell. Island. Forest. Teferi Timebender. 4 mana, a white, and a blue. You can +2 to untap up to 1 target artifact or creature. You can -3 to gain 2 life and draw 2 cards, or you can -9 to take an extra turn after this one. He has 5 loyalty. Same rule applies with the combo there between those two. Just talk to people, be like, hey, I can do this one thing. And the chance of you even getting to 9 to do that in the first place is very unlikely. So, meh. Chromatic Lantern, 3 mana. Lands you control have tap this to add 1 mana of any color. And this itself has tap to add 1 mana of any color. Great for helping fix mana issues. And running out of room again. Bajukabog. It enters the battlefield tapped. And when it enters the battlefield, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Tap it for a black. This is great. Pop this out, remove someone's graveyard, especially if they're a graveyard-loving deck. And then if you have something like, say, a vtuber, you can have that enter as a copy of it and do it again to someone else. Or if they've remilled themselves or something. It's fun. It's fun. Oh, that dry mouth. All right, Soul Ring, 1 mana, tap for 2, colorless. I need to make more room. Aether Channeler, 2 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1. Create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying. Return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, or draw a card. It's a 2/1. Plains. I'm falling off the edge here. Iganjo, Seat of the Empire. Legendary land, taps for a white. You can also pay 2 and a white to discard it from your hand. It deals 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. Vtuber, just what I was talking about, enters tapped as a copy of another land on the battlefield. Blasphemous Act, 8 and a red. It's 1 less to cast for each creature on the field, and it deals 13 damage to each creature. Good stuff. Yavimaya Coast, taps for colorless, or you can tap it for a green or a blue to have it deal damage to you. Reprieve, 1 and a white. Return target spell to its owner's hand. Draw a card. It doesn't necessarily counter or remove anything. It just makes it delayed, right? So if I cast a spell, you go, no, reprieve it, and then it goes back to the hand, and they just have to cast it again. It slows them down a little bit. Bloom Tender, 1 and a green. For each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool. It's a 1/1. Spirit of Resistance, 2 mana and a white. It's an enchantment. As long as you control a permanent of each color, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. Good way to protect you. And finally, Mithril Coat, 3 mana, flash, indestructible. It's an equipment. When it enters, attach it to a legendary creature you control. Equipped creature has indestructible. Equip cost 3. So there you go. This is my Wizards deck. This is a lot of fun. It doesn't pop off or do anything super crazy. And yeah, just have that conversation with your table and your pod. Just be like, hey, I've got some stuff in here. What parameters are we playing? Are we playing brackets? Or are we just playing casual? Again, it has game changers, but the way that I build the decks are pretty casual, so they don't like trigger off of something else to go infinite or have a 2-card combo or any of the stuff. So it's like, you got the tutor. I'm like, oh, I'm short on land. I'm going to go tutor for a land. Or, oh, I want my Nico so I can, so it's more to get the card out to do the fun stuff more than anything. But yeah, there you go. Feel free to adjust them as you see fit. But hope you like this. Hope it seems like it'd be a lot of fun to do. I really like the Wizards. The Wizards are a blast. They don't get as much love as you think that they would. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys later.